You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we will be talking about day 4 of the SCG test, the 4th test at the Ashes. It's sort of in the balance between an Australia win and an England draw. I guess we'll mainly be talking about whether it will rain tomorrow. I am Jack Hope and I'm joined by Ross Legg, who's incorrectly labelled as Dan Weston on your screens. How are you doing, Ross Legg, Dan Weston?
I'm marvellous, thanks. And we won't just be talking about the rain. There's so much to talk about, Jack. We're not a weather podcast.
Ross, by the way, can you give me the permission to record? Just remember that as a point of order, and I will record this. And I'll just.
You've already got it, mate. You've already got it.
Right, here we go.
Recording
We're going to do that again.
progress.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. We're talking about day 4 from the Ashes because of a recording glitch. We're not going to do a long intro. I'm just going to introduce myself, Jack. My friend Ross. How you doing, Ross?
I'm marvellous, thanks, mate. This finally oiled machine that is the Cricket Podcast, as always. Especially when we get a pretty esteemed guest on, like Cameron Ponsonby.
How you doing, Cameron?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. Good to be back. Always good to be back.
Yeah, Ross. It was a decent day's cricket, wasn't it? It was interesting. Jack Leach took wickets. Really quickly, what are your thoughts about England's win percent chance tomorrow?
It's 2% on the old predictor. 2%.
What's Ross been saying?
Which is Ross would say no chance. So 0. There's a big fat 0 for England. I think I was astounded we got through the 11 overs before the end of play. But I do like the optimism of some of the commentators. I was reading Jonathan Agnew's thing on the BBC this morning, and he was just like, they've given England a chance going into tomorrow. It's just not going to happen, is it? Just not going to happen.
There we go. So we've dealt with the England win before we've even got into the meat of the show. Ross, we do have a sponsor for this episode, don't we?
We
which
do,
you can
indeed.
see on the right hand side of your screens. Do you want to talk people through the sponsor and what they should do?
Yeah, I've written another little tidbit actually. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, it's sponsor time. That's what I'm labelling this as. For this test match, Serious Cricket have seen the light and sponsored each of our daily shows, offering a 10% discount when you use the code TCP10 on their website, the link of which is in the show notes, and obviously you can see it on the screen. If you're anything like us, you'll be turning your attention to winter nets, which are proving impossible to book in South London. So if you know anywhere, please let us know for the season ahead. But no one wants to turn up to winter nets without something new to show off to your teammates. So treat yourself to some new shiny shoes, or finally replace the youth-sized box you're still using. You know, the one that surprises you at the start of each season by catching your plums in all the wrong way. We've had the pleasure of wearing their gear. So this is their team wear, and we've also had their some of their equipment over the years for I Don't Like Cricket Club, and the service has always been brilliant. They offer next day delivery, and they stock all the brands you need. That is Serious Cricket sponsoring the Cricket Podcast.
Thank you very much, Ross. Cameron, do you play cricket?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are you in the market for before the season kicks off?
Ability, talent,
all of the above. I've been telling myself I'm going to get some new spikes for about 7 years, but they're so comfortable now. They're the most disgusting shoes I own, but they fit so well. So I don't know if I ever will buy some other ones.
Yeah,
they're disgusting. They are disgusting though.
My spikes are comfortable, but what happened during last season is that a hole developed in the heel, and all the sort of foam padding around the heel has come out. They're still really comfortable, but I'm just wearing like a plastic plimsoll on the back of my right boot now, which
Delightful.
Yeah, so I'm also in the market for spikes. Ross,
Ross,
are you a batsman? Are you a bowler, Cameron? I'm not too worried about England, Australia. I'm more interested in Cameron's ability, actually.
Oh god, it hurts me to say it, as I bowl off spin now, and it's just I've wanted to be a batter all my life, but I just never scored any runs. So I had to survival, adapt or die, basically. Bowl non-turning off breaks, which is very important. They're very effective. Go around the wicket and be horrible.
No. The old Gilo roll.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it. Do you want a match summary, do we, Jack?
We do want a match summary, Ross.
Right, so England came out to bat this morning with Johnny Bairstow brooming with a little bit of sunburn, as well as a century notched on his belt. And things were looking positive. Jack Leach cover drove down the ground, and people were just like, you know what, we're up for a fight here. We're going to continue the counter-attack, and we're going to be able to bat for the next couple of hours. Unfortunately for England, that didn't go to plan. We lost all of the rest of the remaining 4 wickets that we had in hand in the first 20 minutes. I think some of our players thought they were a bit better than they actually were, and didn't really get the memo of trying to bat with Johnny Bairstow. But he didn't last too long either, as he snicked off pretty much straight away to Scott Boland, who is having another day out. Really, he's he's like one of probably the best Test bowler of all time, actually, now. So
one above Akshay Patel.
Yeah. The England tormentor. So England duly collapsed, which was pretty unsurprising to the majority of people. But there was a confidence in England's bowling to start with, and it was a case of limiting the runs, putting the batsmen under pressure. Mark Wood came in, dismissed David Warner, who was already walking to the shed. Like, he got out mid walk off, so it was a very strange dismissal for him. And there was a little bit of fight back from Marcus Harris and Marnus Labuschagne. But again, Labuschagne, the number 1 Test batsman in the world, is becoming Mark Wood's bunny. And Jack Leach was spinning to win. Marcus Harris, got Steve Smith out. And England were just like, hang on a minute, guys, we've got a chance here. They're 68 for 3, gone to 86 for 4. And if we can get through Cameron Green, who's hit no runs, and they've only got Alex Carey in the tail. That's fine. Unfortunately, Usman Khawaja was in, who decided to again flick on the style. After his LeBron James celebration in the first innings, he decided, you know what, I want to have another little go at another celebration, and duly racked up an imperious 100, is what David Gower called it on the commentary, and was ably supported by Cameron Green, who, I'm not sure he's a Test match number 6, but I tell you what, he is enjoyable to watch when he does get going. I think that they racked up a ridiculously long lead for England. Like, I think they could have declared about an hour and a half before when they actually did, but they've set England a silly target, and the game is well out of reach of the England batsmen, and set up nicely for either the weather to win or Australia to win.
Cameron, who was your man of the day? Cameron, by the way, for people watching on YouTube, is not Max Rowe Brown. He is Cameron. I'm not. Max is the graphic designer, and he didn't make us a template. So,
who's man of the day? It's got to be Khawaja, doesn't it? It can't be anyone else. I think Khawaja's now he's an incredibly elegant, hot-handed player. So his highs are incredibly high, and it's interesting when I'm not the first person to say this, but how it's kind of switched from being so happy Khawaja's got a game to, or it's good to see him back, or can he take this chance to, why on earth has he not been playing for the last 2 years, basically? And I think Khawaja does I think he did when he got left out, he had been just not scoring that many runs, and it wasn't a kind of diabolical decision when it happened. It might have been harsh, but then what people didn't expect was his replacement, who was effectively Labuschagne, just to be really, really good. And so there wasn't really a route back in. And so they juggled around a bit. But then since he scored some Sheffield Shield runs, he has come back in due course. And it's just, there's still talk about whether he plays in Hobart next week, because people are saying it's a long-term decision. So they're saying Khawaja will be a lock-in now to open in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and then... Sri Lanka, Pakistan and India, next year. I think I've got that the wrong way around both times. And where do you just give Harris the rest of the series? And that seems, I can't get my head around that. The guys come back in and scored 200s. And also what I really liked about it was kind of seeing him clipped up at the end. He's got something like 60 off his first 50 balls after tea. And you almost feel like when someone's just playing T20 cricket, if they get to their 100, it's almost like, oh, that was a nice surprise. That was yay. But actually, it was a really kind of impassioned celebration again, and you can tell it obviously means so much to him. And he had this really nice quote after his first 100, or in the lead up to the Test match, where he said Ponting had just said to him when he'd been going through some kind of tough times, he was like, mate, the harder I tried, the worse I got. And so Khawaja just kind of just flipped the switch and gone like, look, I'm 35, I've got a family, I've got kids. Cricket's cricket, it's great, I love it, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's come out the other side where he's having kind of had the best day of his career. Surely it has to count as the best day of his career, doesn't it? He hasn't done this before, so yeah.
I'd retire.
That's a few best days of the
stop,
career.
yeah.
We're dishing out this series. I've got Michael Neser, best day of his career. Scott Boland,
Best day of his life. Let's be honest.
Khawaja, Travis Head. That's 40% of the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I made this joke last time, and I don't think I should make it again, but about England being the Make-A-Wish Foundation of international cricket. And just it continues. We just provide the best day of lives to people. But I don't know if it's very appropriate, so I don't know.
Hey, on this podcast, anything's appropriate, I think. So
there we go.
Yeah, Ross, from an England point of view, it wasn't without performances, was it? We'll talk about the day in a bit more detail, but I think we should give some credit to Jack Leach, the Somerset spinner. Finally come to the party, 4 for 80 odd. That's not bad going, is it?
He bowled really well, and I think there's a bit. It's a confidence kind of thing, right? When you're a spinner, especially playing in these kind of pitches and playing on Australia, it comes down to actually having that trust in him. And there's always been that case of, does Joe Root actually trust him as the frontline spinner? And some of the actions over the last 2 years have demonstrated that he doesn't have that confidence in him. But today, actually, Jack Leach was making the most of the pitch. I think it's always difficult. Again, he's bowling when England haven't hit enough runs to actually go and defend, but they were attacking. England had attacking fields to him, and they weren't just trying to protect the boundaries, which was, I think, was a positive move. And I think he also benefited from actually having Ollie Pope as wicketkeeper, who had an absolutely fantastic day behind him with two genuinely good catches off of Jack Leach bowling.
Yeah, he was good. It was interesting. Really, we know he gets better with each innings, but he did look, not all the time, but he did look at times like a genuine threat when he was bowling today. And it's one of those things. It now makes the decision not to play him at Adelaide look even dumber in hindsight, given that he clearly has the capability to at least some extent trouble the Australian batters when he's getting a bit of help from the surface. Yeah, go on, Cameron.
So I'm still a reluctant Jack Leach skeptic. I just don't. It doesn't make sense in my head. It doesn't look right. I don't really. I think I saw the kind of assault at the Gabbers just now burned into my brain as just like this. Just you see someone so kind of viscerally disrespected, and you go like, oh my god, I can't believe someone's done that to you, basically. And like I think one thing I do, not criticism, but thing I think when people say he's had 2 defensive fields, that is he'll have a huge say in that. And I think he spoke after the Gabba test, and when he came back into the next game, he said they were really defensive fields, and he's like, I just needed to get in. My confidence was shot, and just the ability to bowl, send down and over, and go right. It's gone for 4. It's not gone for 10, and work your way in. And we may be seeing the benefits of that kind of confidence boosting game in the last game here, where he's able to bring that extra player up. I think Harmison said something on commentary which was kind of music to my ears, and I think it sometimes gets overlooked. People often look at like a long on or a long off as like kind of a defensive position for a spinner and say, are you just giving them one? But actually, one of the reasons that player's out there is that it will try and encourage the batters to try and take one down the ground. They might try and reach and drive at a ball that they should otherwise be defending. And that actually brings in close catches because people are pushing. So it is a little bit of a tangent point. It is actually, when those men are out, I know it's so easy, it's so quick for an easy commentary line to be like, bring them up, make them go over the top, but actually it has like an attacking purpose as well. But I think I like Jack Leach. I don't have anything against him as a person. Seems lovely. But I look at his average of 30, and it's the same as when I go, how have you averaged 30 of the ball? That's really good. You've got a really good record. But I don't know when this happened. When did this record appear and be created?
If you kind of judge it, that bit where you said that bit is the assault in the Gabbo is kind of etched into your mind now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like going like to, I don't know, like a random field, right? And you turn up and everyone else has got a 4x4, and everyone's going to be like, oh, you've bought the right vehicle for this. England turned up. I know Jack Leach isn't a Ferrari, is he? He's like a Lotus or a TVR or like a, I don't know, a Ford Focus or something like that.
Streamlined.
Yeah, he's not 4x4. He was two-wheel drive, and you've put him into some conditions that just don't suit him, and he's embarrassed himself because of the situation he was in. He got stuck in the mud and he was really shit. But that was because of the conditions he got thrown into. And I think that poor management has been a sign of how we've managed him, how we've managed Dom Bess as well.
Yeah.
And I think England's treatment of those spinners has been a dereliction of duty.
Yeah. I think it is. There's definitely a chance it's just confirmation bias, on negative confirmation bias on my heart. Maybe the problem's with me, not with Jack Leach. I'm more than happy to accept that's a possibility. But I do definitely also think the idea of like we've managed them wrong. I get it. I think there's in cases that it's true. But I also think when you're in a high performance environment, it's cutthroat, man. Like you can't hold people's hands through it in the same way that you would do in kind of a club game or whatever. But again, the more I'm speaking, the more I'm thinking maybe the problem's with me. So
the thing I would say about this Leach thing is that you have to bear in mind with him that he is a limited spinner. He's not Ravi Ashwin. He's not Jadeja. He's probably he's not even. Well, not even Graham Swan. He's not Graham Swan. But people go on in England about how Graham Swan was this like genius spinner. Just Graham Swan, when he went to Australia, he averaged 50. Over his two tours. Like he was not as good as Graham Swan will tell you he was. It's the thing is with Swan though, they did manage him better and they put him in situations where he could thrive and for example, at that Adelaide Test when he did take the fifer, he was able to win the game. Jack Leach is similar to that. I'm not as good a bowler. I mean, Swan is obviously a better bowler. I'm not saying that he isn't. But Leach has two strengths. He can bowl really well to right-handers, and he can bowl really well when he gets assistance from the track. The rest of the time, he is not going to be giving you like plus value for the overs he bowls. He's not going to necessarily tie it up too well. He's not necessarily going to be too much of a threat. So the onus is really, if you're going to play him, on the management, on the captain, on the coach, on Jack Leach himself to some extent as well here, to come up with a way that his overs are not too detrimental when he's being bowled in a less than ideal situation. If you want to look at this, if you want just the numbers here, when he bowls in the first innings of a match, his average is 84. When he bowls in the second innings of a match, 43. Third innings, 24. Fourth innings, 18. Now, a guy who averages 18 in the fourth innings or 24 in the third innings is adding value. That's useful when you come to second innings. When you come to the second innings of a game, if you've got a guy who can come in and be a genuine pain in the arse, you've got no problem with that. But you do have to factor in that at some other point in the test, he's going to be a bit of a passenger. I don't think England have got that balance quite right. I think Ross, the example you made with the cars and so on. Sometimes you do have to say, look, we just can't play you because we don't think we're ever going to get that much assistance from the pitch, or we don't think the game's going to go to day 3, 4, or 5, or days 4 and 5. I don't think you're going to get that right all the time, but yeah.
Is that first innings figure? Do you know if that figure is in the context of? Because it sounds terrible. Like, or is a normal spinner 60, 50, 40, 30 throughout the innings, or 50 down to 20? Is 80 particularly bad, or is that just
I think it look
worse than it is?
I think it very much depends on the bowler. So I think Nathan Lyon has a sort of a situation where it's maybe not quite the reverse, but much more balanced out. And people have a go at Lyon in Australia for not being a particularly good fourth innings bowler. Now, if you think about Lyon, though, what's he doing? He's almost bowling a different type of spin to Leach. He's all about beating you in the air and getting bounce, and that translates much better into like first innings, second innings, second inning bowling. As a general rule, that is the trajectory you see. You see bowlers better in the third and fourth innings, or spinners better, in the third and fourth innings. I've just got Ashwin up as the gold standard comparison here. Ashwin's 28 in the first innings, so it falls to 17, so it is there. I think Leach is quite extreme. There probably are things he needs to work on in his game there. There are probably plans that England need to come up to that make him better at that. But they never play him. He's only bowled. I mean, we're talking about this comparison. He's only bowled about 150 overs in the first innings of a match. That isn't that many overs. That's quite a small sample size that we have there. He won't have had that much time to learn in kind of adverse conditions to develop his game. You know. Yeah,
for just those numbers to make me tell me why England played best at South Africa, because they go, we want you. There's enough in it for the seamers, for our seamers to win us the match. We need you to hold down an end, which did really well in the first and second innings, and then you can offer more of the bat, and that makes us a better team rather than relying on Jack Leach in the fourth innings when we can nip him out anyway with the seamers. I don't know. Yeah,
just looking at Jadeja. Jadeja's like in the 40s in the first innings, and or 36 in the first innings, 45 in the second innings, and then that falls to 20 and 24 in 3 and 4. So it's again, we're talking about Jack Leach. He's a limited spinner. He's not Jadeja. He's not Ashwin. He doesn't get to bowl on really useful surfaces all the time as well. So you do have to sort of think these plans through. I think, or teach him to do something that's a little bit different.
Also plays at Somerset, right? Also, as most of his game has been played on pitches that actually assist what he's trying to do, and that's why he's been effective.
One of the things that I think Leach does do, and I haven't got the data here, so this could be completely wrong, but I think he does, generally speaking, give the ball quite a rip. Like he tries to bowl with as much spin as possible. And I think sometimes earlier in innings, that might actually not be conducive to keeping the run rate down and being tight and doing the job. Because the more spin you try and put on the ball, generally speaking, the less control you have. And if it's sort of, anywhere within a 1 meter radius, that can be milked if the ball doesn't start to rag. Now, if it is gripping and it is turning and it is bouncing, then it doesn't really matter where it lands so much, does it? If you're getting an extreme reaction from the pitch, then you're putting the batsman in a bad situation. I think that might be part of Leach's deal as well. But yeah,
I missed the rev counter. Remember they used to have that on. Where's that gone? I like the widget's always good. I always like the bits where they just like, we're going to try this widget out. Yeah. Everyone chastised that box, the running box in the previous test series. Yeah. Awful. But bringing back some of these random bits that don't add too much value to what's being talked about, but could be a good distraction, I'm all for that.
My favourite one of those was they used to do a weak zone, and it'd be like a heat map where the batter's batting. Every batter would walk out, and they'd be like, "Where's this guy weak?" And you'd be like, "Top of off, actually." And you're like, "Brilliant, cheers." It was just a really hot red dot over the top of off stump. You're like, "Cool." Well, I love it.
Max has a real passion. I'm not talking about myself in the third person or you, Cameron, because obviously, but around where they put the slot, when they've got the different bits on the pitch. So there's no such thing called the slot. And it's just like, well, Max, your Surrey bowlers have just been pounded over the boundary again. Sorry, we digress.
Right, yeah. So we've done the talking points of the two men of the day. If we go back to the beginning, we'll quickly go through the other things that happened. Ross, we were chatting away on WhatsApp last night. I think we both thought that England maybe got it wrong at the beginning of the day in that they. So it was an interesting dynamic here. So England, I guess they thought every 4 runs we score is another over Australia have to bat, but also every over we bat is another over Australia can't bat, or we don't have to bat later. I thought the balance was slightly in favour, or slightly too far towards like smash it and don't worry. Did you agree with that?
I thought they needed they just needed to get back in and find their feet again, right? Like going out and finishing on 100 was an amazing achievement for Johnny Bairstow, and that the emotion out of that. Actually, if they took a little bit of time, we're just like, you know what? Let's be here in 25 minutes. Let's play it by minute, and then they can go after it. I didn't think they had to be so gun-ho from ball one. I mean, I'm all for the counter-attacking cricket. Absolutely love it. It's always great to watch. But in that part, Johnny Bairstow had done his job in the first innings and now had to bat with the tail. And I just don't think that really happened. Like you saw when Stuart Broad was in. Stuart Broad was just like, nope, there's a single there. Come on, Johnny. And it was a bit like, Broad, you're not the senior batsman here, mate. Like Johnny Bairstow's the guy on 113 and you're going, no, let's call him through. When he's clearly shouted no on one of the occasions.
Stuart Broad's not going to leave a run on the table, Ross.
It wasn't even his run. Johnny Bairstow swept it back to out to deep square leg and gone, no, as he loves to do. And And Broad's halfway up the pitch, and Johnny Bairstow's like, for fuck's sake, I've got to trundle on now. And I just thought, yeah, like Leach's shot was a little bit disappointing. Again, like, as you said, Lyon is always going to try and get that extra bounce. So just the ball just wasn't there to do the shot that he wanted to do. And I just think if England would have batted for an hour and a half, it changes again the game. It gives England a little bit more of a chance not to lose this. And we've talked many times in the last kind of couple of weeks around England's approach to Test cricket should be about trying to maximise the draw percentage at this point in time because we're not a very good Test team. And I don't think we did that very well today.
Cameron, do you agree or disagree?
I didn't mind it, but that might just be because I enjoyed it. I thought like Wood's model was kind of filtered down. It was like, should we just whack it? And it's going really well. I also wonder whether Johnny Bairstow's thumb had anything to do with it. And he was like, I'm shot here. I can't really hold out. And then you're batting with the tail. And so they think, actually, we're not going to be lasting here that long. I think Stuart Broad is just obviously an intelligent man, just not when he's batting. Just the lap sweep for one. The kind of on its first ball, and in my head I've made up that it was on the last ball of the over. It probably wasn't, but it reminded his just whole attitude reminded me of I think it was the first game of the men's 100. The Oval Invincibles knew that the opposition were going to be opening up with a left arm spinner, as they opened the batting with Sunil Narine with Jason Roy. So Narine would take first ball, and Jason Roy went, "You're taking the piss out of me. I'm obviously going to still take first ball." So they walked out. And Roy was like, you go over that end, I'm facing this spinner. And apparently Sam Billings, the captain, was actually like tearing his hair out on the sidelines, being like, we planned this, we spoke about this. There's a reason we did it. And he's just ignored it. And he just kind of went completely AWOL and was like, I'm going to do my own thing. I thought it was fine. I think if there's any way that this game might not be saved as a draw, it's not 9-10 Jack failing to bat for an extra 20 minutes or so. Like, they went okay. We were 36 for 4 and we got 294. That's borderline miraculous. So I'm okay with it, to be boringly pathetic.
Yeah. Before we get on to the Australian innings,
could have at least tried to get to 300 though, couldn't we? We were.
Why would you? Don't need to break those sort of barriers, do you?
I find it just quite funny. I hope we get 299 next innings. I want us to have the best. I want us to be competitive, score lots of runs, and then just never get 300.
If you got 299 every innings, you'd be a pretty good Test team. I think you'd win almost always.
There's the model. Let's go.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, can you do us a favour? Can you hit like and can you hit subscribe and can you hit that bell? If you do those three things, then you have won. Ross, do you want to quickly tell them about our sponsors as well before we do the Australian innings and questions?
Yes, this podcast is sponsored by Serious Cricket, and because you are watching this and listening to this, you get 10% off when you use the code TCP10 on Serious Cricket's website on all equipment.
Good work. seriouscricket.co.uk. So Australia, they came out, they batted, as happens in Test match cricket. That's the way it works. Did you think, fellas, I'll give this to Ross first. Did you think actually that England taking wickets was bad for England, in that it meant that they might have to bat longer or in theory go for the win? Well, Australia were 85 or 86 for 4, so at that point about 200 ahead. If they collapsed in a heap and set England, say, 260 with 4.5 or 4 sessions to go, I think that is more likely that England lose that. I think it's about the same likelihood they win it than what has happened, Ross.
One, they completely like the logic there. Two, we're down 2 batsmen. So as much as we managed to get through the night, those 11 overs at the start, so with Zach Crawley and Hamid at the crease, look, we don't have Buttler. Butler's got a broken finger, and so does Johnny Bairstow. So they're both in that position where we don't have that middle order anymore. So I'm completely in that boat of being just so. I couldn't believe they batted for as long as they did, Australia. And I think to your point, if we would have rolled them, we would have been in a difficult situation because we would have had to try to go for it. I think we wouldn't have been able to just sit and try and survive because we wouldn't be able to do that. But But I also think that Pat Cummins was too defensive here, and it's one of those classic cases of chastising the best bowler in the world and the new captain. Because I think if they would have declared when they got to 260, that would have been game on, and I think they would have.
They declared at 265.
Yeah, but they've got a lead of 380 or whatever it was.
You're arguing about 5 runs here.
I'm saying the lead. The lead of right. They should have declared on that with the lead of that, and I've been like, go for it. Go on,
would have been the most disrespectful declaration of all time.
But that's what happened. If I was Australia captain, that's what I would have done.
I look what this England team have done to you both. You're debating whether we shouldn't have taken wickets. Like, it's a terrible. Like, we've got. Obviously, the best case scenario for England was to bowl them out cheaply. It can't be anything else.
let him in 500. Now in Milan, you're bowling all day from that end.
But yeah, I don't know. We'd have been stuffed. But I don't think Bairstow and Buttler ever came onto the field, as far as I can tell. This is a potential gap in my knowledge if anyone does know. So does that mean Woods at 6?
No, maybe? I think because it's an injury, you're all right.
Okay, but then Stokes had that thing in the first innings where he's like, I need to come back onto the field because I need to bat 5. These are the finites of whatever. No,
we did actually get this question actually. So Lacking Brevity 1 actually said, "Can you explain the rules on Test match substitutions on our Twitter?" But I'm not sure everyone can. I'm not sure the umpires can.
I can't. But maybe Jack looks quizzical as if maybe.
No, I'm pretty sure that if you've sustained an injury that means you can't field and you're a batter, you can still bat. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. So there's that.
And just a quick word on the declaration. I think if he declared any earlier, it would be a declaration for the rain. Basically, you're like taking the weather into account. The forecasts have been a bit iffy in terms of how accurate they've been. So he's probably gone like, people just don't want to lose. Basically, people don't want to lose more than they want to win. So they're like, let's take out that result from the game and go from there. The only kind of criticism I'd have about the declaration is if they've sent Carey in to have a whack and go for another half an hour, then he gets out first ball, you're like, you've given him a hiding to nothing there. The man's out of form as it is, and now his average is he's got a golden duck on his record now as well. So his
dismissal was hilarious. Like being out when you tried to sweep it and coming off the back of your bat. It was a great catch from Ollie Pope, to be fair. But that's one of those bits where you come back and be like, I'm so out of form, where Lady Luck has abandoned me.
Yeah, the other guy who did get runs was Cameron Green. Nice, I suppose, if you're Australian, to see him finally turn up. Not ideal for England, but he batted all right, didn't he, Ross?
As I said in the opening summary, I don't think it hasn't convinced in this Ashes series that he is a Test match number 6. He's proved that he's more than capable with the ball, and a great gully fielder. So if there is selection criteria, which is definitely good enough against England, then bring him on, continue to play him. But I think will do a good thing for his confidence. He played some good shots, but again, England, I'm not sure we quite got the bowling approach to him correct. Like, the guy's 7 foot tall, and we're trying to bounce him out with some bounces from broad, and you're a bit like, this guy's just going to whack you. He was literally picking the ball up from outside off stump and just smashing it over mid wicket, and it was a little bit like, just again, our plan sometimes are a little bit lacking.
Yeah. Well, there you go. In England, to wrap up the day's play, just make sure we covered everything. England make it to the close without losing a wicket, 30 off 11 overs. 22 runs for Zach Crawley. What did I say he would get? I said he'd get 113 in the first innings, didn't I? And I was off by about 90. But maybe this time it will. He looked good. He looked in good touch. Yeah, maybe this is the time.
But we get suckered in though. It's a classic case. Like, he hit I think it was 2 shots down the ground, and David Gower was on comms, and he was like, "That is That is glorious. I was about to say that is gravy. I realised David Gow would never say that. But he looked good. The clip off his legs for the boundary as well. Hamid managed to survive. Cameron, you on one of the previous shows, you've kind of said, I think we might have seen Hamid's best innings, and he got 25 and 26. That was a correct premonition, mate. That was right there. Like he rode his luck, and unfortunately has been left wanting, I think is the polite way.
Yeah, it's really sad, and I think there's a really good chance that Burns just comes back in for him next innings if he doesn't get any here. We've already all fallen back into the Zach Crawley honey trap.
I haven't, but
I love it.
I think he's going to get a century, but it's like, stop clocks and all that, isn't it? I think it's set up for him. I think the pitch is actually reasonably flat. People will be tired. Australia won't be as motivated as they could be. And the ball's is old enough now that he can whack it around. So yeah, century for Zach Crawley, definitely on the way. We've had people clarify this injury point. So two injured to field. I think if it's an external injury, it might be you have to bat 7, or an internal injury, you have to bat 7 or lower. If you've been hit though, so an external blow, this is from JJ, you can still bat as normal. So everyone, maybe that was why Stokes had to come back onto the field, because he hadn't been hit.
Side strain.
Whereas the other two had taken a bit of pummeling to the gloves.
Crowdsourcing rules the game. That's what you want as a cricket podcast. If Max was actually truly here, Max would have known that. He would have known like the clause in the ICC rule book. He would have known everything.
Right, so I think we've got 3 or 4 questions. Ross, do you want to read that full question in its entirety for the person who's new to cricket? Put it up. I'll read the Patreon testimonial we got, and then we'll go to that.
On the substitute question.
Yeah.
Okay, so lacking brevity 1 has said, pretty new to cricket, so I don't know all the intricacies. No one ever will do, so don't worry about that. But he's loving the podcast. If you get a chance on the pod tomorrow, could you explain the rules and substitutions? We've tried and failed, and then tried and the crowdsourced and done that. Only just learn about being off the field means you can't bat for a certain time. Are there other such rules? What's the deal with Bairstow and Butler? Can they bat in the second innings if they've not been able to field? Is there a maximum number of replacements you can have? Is that why Stokes is having to field?
So I think we've answered that, haven't we? We've successfully answered that question. The other thing to sort of bear in mind, there aren't really substitutes in the conventional sense of the word, are there? In that if you are injured, unless you've been hit in the head, you have to play on or
it's concussion or COVID.
Nine wickets, yeah.
So you can be replaced in the test team mid game if you've got concussion or you've caught COVID.
And that is it. Otherwise, you can break your arm, your foot can fall off.
Well, we saw Paul Collingwood fielding for England, didn't we, in the Test match not too long ago, and he was one of the coaching staff. So, but we had fortunately Craig Overton's been there carrying the drinks this whole time, and he was there to come on the pitch, and I guess so was Dan Lawrence.
Lawrence was out there, yeah. And then over on Patreon, we have another new Patreon. So thank you to Larn. He says, not really a question, it's just a testimonial for us. Thank you for the brilliant content over the last year. You guys were by far the my most played podcast of 2021. I listened to a fair few cricket podcasts, and yours is by far the standout, and it's great to see so many people now watching and listening to your content. FYI, I love the new guests that have been appearing on the show recently. Always nice to listen to fresh and diverse perspectives from across the globe. The Melinda Farrell and Shane Dietz episodes were superb as something different every now and again, though equally enjoy the shows where it's just the OGs. Thank you again, chaps. So thank you to Larn on a new Patreon. Patreon.com/The Cricket Pod if you would like to sign up and support the podcast, and we will always make sure we have time for your comments, questions, etc., as well as some other stuff. Patreon.com/The Cricket Pod. And then to wrap things up on Twitter, we had a couple of questions. First from Tim Wilton D, who I think's in the chat comments or on YouTube as well. Since Test cricket is so much about mental fortitude, would it make sense to have a psychological coach a la Ferguson or Wenger in soccer? Cameron, what do you think about that? Getting Arsene? I think we've joked about Allardyce, haven't we? But maybe we should aim higher.
I think Australia actually have one. I think I remember seeing a YouTube video really recently. This lads was basically like my job's been to come in and just basically be the team psychiatrist, basically. And I think so. It's one of those ones where I heard it kind of was like a semi-jokey question. And I was like, I actually think people might be doing that because they have kind of realised how kind of mentally debilitating the game can be. Well, it is just the lows are so low, and so they've kind of there is a move that Australia have done. I don't know whether other teams will kind of follow suit in terms of just getting someone in for the squad so that they can just have someone to talk to, which is both a very positive thing and also kind of a bit of an indictment of the kind of stresses of the game, I guess.
There's different approaches there, though, isn't there? Because like having having a team that's on top of the world, kind of like Australia, who have not played much bio bubble cricket, etc. There's a difference between being a sports psychologist or sports psychiatrist for that team to being the like post World War II trenches psychologist that you have to be for the England team. In this kind of thing like that, so you're a lot busier, and it's about patching those guys up to be like, you've got to go again, mate. It's not about kind of having an elite level of performance. So I mean, it's a broad range. I know that in football it's becoming more and more prevalent. So I know that Tyrone Mings, before every single game, he has a session with a sports psychologist. Every game that he plays. Cool. And
AFC Wimbledon used to have a guy, and he'd come in with planks of wood, and the players would punch through the planks of wood to hype themselves up. As
a metaphor, this is what you're breaking. Yeah, nice. I like it.
Yeah. That's genuinely true. Last question of the day then. So get ready for this one, Ross, from VJ. After the performance today, should Jack Leach be treated better by team management and start playing matches more frequently instead of always being left on the bench? We saw what he can do with good support and confidence.
I think we covered it at the start of the show. I think definitely England need to be managing their spinners better. But I also think England need to open the options that we have in the spin department need to be opened up. Like the way in which we've treated Matt Parkinson this year has been dreadful. Like he's travelled all around the globe and then just been a net bowler and then had no opportunities really to play. I think when we go to the West Indies, I think it's time to give someone else a go, and whether that is Matt Parkinson, who's the top, or whether it's his brother, I don't know. But there is definitely some talent on the county circuit that I think we should be looking at and giving that opportunity. And as you say, Jack, like Leach is a good spinner, a good option to have, but we need to cast the net a little bit wider than him and Dom Bess.
Okay, we're going to wrap up there. Any final words from you, Cameron?
All good from me.
Any final words from you, Ross?
Just thanks to Cameron for coming on. Obviously, everyone's loving the rotation of guests we've got at the moment, and glad to have you on, mate.
That did really make me laugh. Actually, I really enjoyed the most recent guest, and I was celebrating and then named the two other people. I was like,
it's the two Australians. That's
that's what it is. Yeah, we'll have to get an Australian on for the victory tour next week. Ross, one last word from our sponsor.
Yeah, we are sponsored by Serious Cricket. Use code TCP10 on their website, where you can get 10% off all cricket equipment. So go and do that.
Excellent stuff. And we're at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And you need to hit like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is on your chosen platform. Cheerio. We will be back to wrap this test up probably about the same time tomorrow. Have a little bit of a sleep before we start. Goodbye.